Hi guys, and welcome to today's lesson. So we're going to be doing some more digital painting using Procreate again. And this time I'm working from a sketch by a 19th century painter called Carolus-Duran, who was a teacher at one of the famous academies, salons in Paris in the kind of mid to late 19th century. And this is a quick sketch, so quite a good sort of piece to study, some quite nice sort of shifts between yellowish and reddish skin tones. So today we're just going to be establishing our shapes, and it's going to be a similar process to what we did last time with our sort of charcoal study, but this time we're going to be creating it more like a color study, not necessarily emulating the brush strokes like the oil texture, but looking at the color relationships basically. So first thing I want to do is put down a tone, which is going to be my average sort of background tone. So I'm going to pick a kind of warm brown from in the halftones of the face. I'm going to grab just a big painting brush to get that laid in. And then just get that washed over this side of the piece. And then I'm going to take a sketching tool, so probably like this little peppermint brush, and I'm going to work with more of a kind of dark browny kind of grey colour. And what we want to do to begin with is, like we did with the study last time, we're just trying to box in the overall kind of proportions of her head. So you can have a look through the previous video, previous upload on the channel, if you want to see how that worked. But this is the same sort of idea, so you can see I'm just getting the outside sort of boundaries. Of her body and head in place. And really early on with this, I'm going to start getting shadow shapes in. So we've got kind of like the shadow shapes of her hair. Down the side of her face. Her nose. And then I'm just going to use that darker tone to get all these bits shaded in. Because getting them shaded in will help judge all the kind of relative proportions. So I can see maybe I'd want to lift the positioning of the brow a little bit. Try to lengthen the nose somewhat. So this would be the equivalent of what I call the wash drawing stage when you're painting. So you'd have a prepared canvas panel with a tone, and you'd be using raw umber or burnt umber, something like that, to start laying in your shadow shapes over that basis. So here would be kind of like if we were building up more paint. So we've kind of done our first initial wash. So I'm lifting the right hand eye to match the left hand one. So you can see that gets us to a point where we've got reasonably kind of well-established shapes to start working from. So what I want to do next is start getting some background, some colours in basically. So let's create a new layer as though that previous layer is kind of fixed in, it's dried, and we're going to work over the top of it. So the next thing I want is something that's going to match the kind of bluey green of the background. And we're going to start painting. So I'm just going to use like a big round brush. And that's maybe a little bit too kind of bright, intense. It's maybe a little bit too dark. And you'll see I try generally when I'm painting, similar to when I was talking, we were doing drawing and we were kind of working something that looked a bit like a charcoal drawing. When I'm working on the tablet with these sorts of studies, I try to work as though I'm still painting. So the advantage is that I'm able to kind of layer things, correct things, save iterations while I'm learning or while you're learning. But you don't want to make it sort of too easy, make everything into different layers, and you also don't want to necessarily color grab all your colors. You can color grab to sort of check things. That's a useful little tool as a learning device, but you don't want to do it kind of for everything. Selecting, kind of looking at the color wheel or the color options and selecting them individually is a better way to learn more for your traditional work. It doesn't matter so much if you're just working digitally. Even then I would say it's probably worthwhile, but it's not quite so crucial if you're not kind of intending to do work traditionally as well. So I'm going to grab some black now, get that in over where her shoulder is. So that's not too bad for her hair. I think we got her hair, most of her darker tones in. So her eyes are quite dark as well. They can go in as a black initially. So just working over those shadows that we already established. Yeah, that's looking not too bad. So that's pretty good in terms of getting, it's not perfect, but it's not too bad in terms of getting our shapes established. So next we'll go in for a warmer sort of dark shadow colour, a bit more of a warm ochre colour than we've got, maybe a little bit richer than that. Not quite so. A little bit more chroma, adding a bit more saturation into the shadow there. And then let's go a bit redder, deeper, darker for the darker shadow underneath her chin. So getting this darker shadow in is going to make it feel like light's bouncing up into the bottom of her chin, which is important. This same dark colour, let's get in for the top of the nose there. A little bit lighter, greyer and redder down the rest of the nose in shadow. Next I want to get my light tones in, so we're going to be jumping up to something a bit pinker and brighter for her cheek. Make my brush a little bit bigger. And then just gradually darkening the tone slightly as it starts to turn away. And then it goes a little bit, kind of shifts yellowish. Maybe a tad darker as well, so something closer to like, yeah, that kind of colour. So first up, I just want to get this colour kind of laid in. Maybe a little bit darker and pinkish. So I'm going to make a slightly bigger brush just to get the shoulders washed in. So now what we want to do is get the warmer tones into the cheek. So again, I'm going to go pushing more reddish, but darker red this time. It's not too bad. Maybe even a little bit darker yet, make my brush a bit smaller. Just for this colour that turns out of the cheek. Yeah, that's not too bad. Probably this isn't too bad actually for the lighter colour. And a similar reddish colour bounces up underneath the chin and jawline there. And then just a touch lighter up where we're catching light on that top cheek. Back to our lighter, more yellowy colour. Can use that just to punch out the lights a little bit on the other side. I won't do that too much actually, because try to keep it fairly simple. And then our lips in shadow are going to be reddish again. A bit more reddish, a bit deeper. That's not too bad. And then we need our lips in lights. They're kind of pinkish. It's not necessarily shaped perfectly, but not too bad size-wise. Kind of going back and rendering is what we'll be doing next time. So not too fussed about everything being perfect at this stage in terms of shape. So long as it's kind of roughly working, I'm happy. That's all I'm going for. Take a little bit of that pink colour just to get the other nostril in place. And a little bit of a darker colour. So darker colour for the actual nostril itself. And then we're getting close to having pretty much everything in place. Maybe it's just an even smaller colour just to get the notes in the lips, kind of corners of the mouth, centre of the mouth there. I'm going to use that just to pull across some little darker notes around the eyes, and then a slightly kind of more greyish light colour just for the little bit of the white of the eye that we see on that side, and then going for a darker reddish colour for the shadow cast by the lock of hair. And yeah, that's not looking too bad as a sort of starting point. Maybe you can pull a little bit of these lighter colours just here above the top of the lips. We don't need to do loads. We're going to be coming back into it next time. This is just establishing our kind of broader relationships. Maybe a little bit, some lighter greys just to start getting the highlights in the hair. Suggested a little bit of a more golden colour at the top of the hair there. And then some brighter yellows just to start suggesting the jewellery. Maybe a little bit of a lighter, warmer red just for that ear that we see. But yeah, that pretty much kind of does it as a first little pass. This is what you'd maybe be going for in your first session of painting. If I got this in my first session of painting, I'd be pretty happy. There's things that you'd be tweaking when you get back to it, but you're sort of like roughly getting things established. You're getting a feel for the colours. One of the main things you're trying to figure out is just like what colours are you going to actually be using as you progress with the painting. And the same thing, even working digitally, that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of like figuring out what am I going to use colour-wise moving forwards, what sort of values go where. But yeah, we'll leave it at that for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the session. In terms of tools that we used, they're pretty simple. We just used a peppermint from the sketching section for that initial block in this stage and kind of switch between them. So that first kind of block in stage, we used the peppermint, and then I just swapped to a really basic, just a round brush, painting round brush, and I shifted the opacity and the size up and down a little bit. So yeah, that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the lesson. We'll be carrying on with this next session and getting it sort of refined. Probably just another session on this. We'll do probably a few more digital studies. But yeah, it's a nice little reference, this. I'll put a note of the artist in the description. You guys can probably hunt it down if you want to find it and work from it yourself. Or you can just use a screen grab of mine otherwise. But yeah, that's it for today. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.